Foreign soldiers mocked Filipino training. 10 minutes later, they regretted it. They didn't mean to insult anyone. At least, that's what they said later. It started as laughter, casual comments, side glances between men who had trained in deserts, mountains, and modern facilities. They looked around and didn't see what they expected. No high-tech simulators, no massive infrastructure, no flashy displays of strength. Just heat, humidity, jungle terrain, and Filipino soldiers standing quietly, waiting. To the visiting foreign unit, this didn't look intimidating. It looked outdated. One of them joked that this kind of training belonged to another era. Another said 10 minutes would be more than enough to see everything there was to see. That was the first mistake. Because Filipino military training doesn't begin with spectacle. It begins with endurance. And endurance doesn't announce itself. What the foreign soldiers didn't understand was that this environment wasn't a backdrop. It was the weapon. The heat wasn't an obstacle to be managed. It was part of the test. The uneven ground, the thick vegetation, the lack of clear paths, all of it was intentional. Filipino training is designed around one assumption. If you can function here, you can function anywhere. No shortcuts, no comfort, no illusion of control. And that philosophy would make itself very clear, very quickly. At the start, everything felt manageable. The first few drills looked simple enough. Movement through terrain, load-bearing marches, coordinated maneuvers. The visiting soldiers moved confidently, almost casually. Their posture said they had done harder things in harsher places. And for the first few minutes, they were right. They kept pace. They laughed. They whispered comments under their breath. 10 minutes wasn't going to be a problem. Then the pace changed. Not faster, smarter. The instructors didn't shout. They didn't intimidate. They simply adjusted the drill. Slightly longer carries, slightly steeper angles, slightly shorter rest intervals. Nothing dramatic enough to raise alarm, just enough to begin draining reserves. Sweat poured faster in the humid air. Breathing became heavier. The jungle didn't allow wind. The ground didn't allow rhythm. Muscles that were used to predictable surfaces started working differently. And that's when the jokes stopped. This wasn't brute force training. It was cumulative pressure. Filipino soldiers are trained to survive long after comfort disappears. Their doctrine isn't built around dominating an opponent quickly. It's built around outlasting them. The drills didn't aim to break bodies. They aimed to reveal limits. And limits reveal themselves quietly. A slight hesitation before the next movement. A longer pause to catch breath. A grip that slips just a little. 10 minutes in, and the visiting soldiers realized something uncomfortable. This wasn't about strength. It was about sustainability. And sustainability favors those who grew up in these conditions, not those visiting them. One of the foreign soldiers tried to compensate by pushing harder. More force, more speed. It backfired almost immediately. Fatigue set in faster. Another slowed down instinctively, trying to conserve energy, but the terrain punished hesitation. Meanwhile, the Filipino soldiers moved steadily. Not fast, not slow, just consistent. Their breathing was controlled, their movements economical. They weren't trying to prove anything. They were simply doing what they had been trained to do. By the 10-minute mark, the difference was undeniable. What started as confidence had turned into strain. Faces that were relaxed earlier now showed focus bordering on discomfort. Communication among the visiting unit dropped. Less joking, more silence. One soldier removed his helmet briefly, clearly underestimating how quickly dehydration could take hold. Another stumbled, not from injury, but from fatigue interacting with uneven ground. The instructors didn't stop the exercise. They observed. This wasn't punishment. This was information. Filipino military training emphasizes awareness over aggression. Soldiers are taught to read their own limits as carefully as they read the environment. That's why they don't rush. That's why they don't waste energy. Every movement has a purpose. Every breath is managed. And that discipline doesn't come from drills alone. It comes from culture. From growing up in environments where adaptation isn't optional, where conditions change quickly, where improvisation is survival. At this point, something subtle but important happened. The visiting soldiers stopped comparing. They stopped assuming. They started respecting the pace being set. Questions replaced comments. Observation replaced judgment. They weren't thinking about 10 minutes anymore. They were thinking about finishing. When the exercise finally paused, no one spoke immediately. The heat hung heavy in the air. Sweat soaked through uniforms. Chests rose and fell in uneven rhythm. The Filipino soldiers remained composed. Tired, yes, but functional. Ready for the next instruction. The visiting unit, on the other hand, needed a moment. That moment said everything. Later, when asked about the experience, one of the foreign soldiers admitted something that hadn't occurred to him before. He said they expected intensity to look a certain way: loud, aggressive, fast. What they encountered instead was something far more difficult to deal with: calm pressure, relentless environment, no clear endpoint, no moment to reset, just constant demand. That's when the regret set in. Not embarrassment, respect, because the mocking hadn't come from cruelty. It came from assumption, from equating modernity with effectiveness, from believing that toughness has to look dramatic to be real. Filipino training challenges that belief. It strips away excess. It focuses on what remains when support systems fail, when technology is limited, when the environment doesn't care about rank or reputation. This is why Filipino soldiers are often described the same way by those who train alongside them after the fact. Quiet, adaptable, hard to break. Not because they are physically superior in every measurable way, but because they are mentally calibrated for uncertainty. They don't panic when conditions worsen. They expect it. The 10-minute mark became a reference point later, not as a joke anymore, but as a lesson. It marked the moment expectations collapsed. When the visiting soldiers realized they hadn't been invited to demonstrate superiority, they had been invited to learn. And learning requires humility. In military training, humility is survival. This wasn't about one group winning and another losing. It was about understanding different philosophies of preparedness. Foreign training often optimizes for control. Filipino training optimizes for chaos. And in environments where plans unravel quickly, chaos is the default. That's why jungle training is unforgiving. It doesn't reward arrogance, it amplifies it. By the end of the exchange, the tone had completely shifted. Conversations were quieter. Questions were thoughtful. There was no more laughter at the setting or the methods. Only recognition that effectiveness doesn't always announce itself with force. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it lets you underestimate it. And then it outlasts you. That's the part most people miss when they hear stories like this. The regret wasn't about being tired. It was about being wrong. Wrong about what strength looks like. Wrong about what discipline sounds like. Wrong about assuming that simplicity equals weakness. If this story surprised you, it's because the world often confuses visibility with value. Filipino military training isn't designed to impress visitors. It's designed to prepare soldiers for reality. And reality doesn't give you warning. It doesn't give you breaks. It just keeps going. The foreign soldiers didn't fail that day. They learned. But they learned faster than they expected, and much earlier than they thought they would. 10 minutes was all it took. If you want more stories like this, stories where assumptions collide with reality, make sure you subscribe to Global Divide. This channel explores the moments that don't make headlines until someone underestimates them.